Congratulations, everybody. I absolutely loved this film so much.
Oh, thank you.
Oh my God, truly, like, I don't want to get too like personal or, but I suffer from anxiety and this film felt made me feel very seen, and I'm so excited for all of the conversations that are going to be had because of it. And I'm so grateful, and your performances are beautiful. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. They
That
are
means a lot.
amazing, aren't they? Aren't they fantastic in it?
Truly, truly.
Wow.
Right there, because I think, oh my gosh, it can be so harmful when characters with anxiety or, obsessive thoughts are victimized on screen. And I think this adds to a lot of societal shame. But oh my gosh, this film gifts us with the complex and full human who is Grace. Her joys, her pains, all of it are explored. So, Teresa and Marcelle, how did you work together to kind of honor her entirety?
Well, I guess we had a starting point, which was that, well, not guess, I mean, it's what I was very keen to do, was to make sure that when we represented Grace, she was not her diagnosis.
Hmm.
That, she was much more than that, that she could be, sexy and smart and, a mathematician. She could be, one minute she could be, very adept at doing whatever she wanted, and the next minute, as happens with anxiety, and I have it myself, I know what it's like to go through it. You can be a roller coaster. It goes up and down. One minute you're fine, the next minute something will trip you up. So we were, Teresa and I spent a long time talking about it and kind of going into depths of it. And then Teresa spent a lot of research. I'll get Teresa to tell you all about that. But yeah, we worked really hard on that aspect of it.
We watched, actually, Marcelle sent me through, I think maybe week 2 before we started shooting in our prep week. She sent me some clips on YouTube. I don't know if you remember this. Of someone journaling and sort of talking about their experience about the intrusive thoughts and how it feels. And I found that really interesting. That sort of sent me down a rabbit hole of going into YouTube and listening to these journals and everyone sharing their experiences. And I think my favorite thing about this character is she's not black and white. She's so many shades of color, and she gets to be all these exciting things. So she is like so vibrant and sexy and playful, and she's really high functioning, and this is just something that is like these rituals, the obsession that comes up for her, but she's still living her life. And we were just got some feedback from the Mental Health Coalition in Australia, and they were like, it was so refreshing because it's portrayed positively. And
Right.
as you started off with your question, so much of this world is explored like the dark side of it. And we really were like, well, she's having this relationship and she's falling in love and she's like achieving so much still. And I think it's really a beautiful celebration of her as a well-rounded person.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I really wish that I'm so happy the film's out now, thank God. But I think of what this would have done for me, 10 years ago when I was kind of carrying, I think there's so much shame attached to um when with mental health, because it's not something that you can see physically. I know, like, for my partner, my husband, it's always hard for him because it's not like when you have a fever or you're coughing and you can see a physical manifestation of the pain. It's much more internalized. But what you also do so brilliantly in this film is you get to see kind of a physical manifestation on the screen of the inner workings of her mind, which creates such an empathy. And I thought that was so brilliantly done.
Oh, thanks. We're pleased that it, resonated with you.
I love Marcelle chose to do this camera rig where I wore a camera, and it was, I don't know if you remember it, but we were in the grocery store and I'm running around and the camera's attached to me, and my eyes are wild and I just am on a mission. I need to get the toothbrushes.
Right.
And I thought that was such a beautiful choice, just the camera work that you chose to do in that moment. Because I really felt like I was inside of her brain and I understood the importance of this mission. And once she got them, she felt fine. So I thought, there was a few little things like that Marcelle weaved into the script. And some of it was unscripted. On the day, there was this one shot where she had me just look into the camera lens. So there's a real intimacy between the audience members
Yeah.
and character. And I went through a series of emotions. So I would be sobbing, crying, and then I'd be laughing, and then I'd be, I'd just go through all the emotions, and they'd just shoot for about 3-4 minutes. And that's in the film a number of times, which gets us inside of the mind of Grace.
Yeah, it's really brilliant filmmaking. It's kudos, like Joe, Seamus. He does something so simple yet so powerful in this film, which he empathizes with Grace, even though he may not fully understand her or her mind. Can you talk about this kind of beautiful and honestly very sexy ability of this character to, offer that support through empathy, and how that was sort of an anchor while playing him?
Yeah, well, thank you. I'll take sexy.
I'm just like, I'm just like, it's sexy when a
but
human
I think that part, but I think hopefully what I think we tried to show with Seamus in the film is that, not as prominently and not in as much detail as Grace, obviously, but that Seamus kind of goes on a journey too, with this stuff, and kind of moves from, it's the early days of their relationship, the first third of the film, and he's unaware of Grace's condition. And when it starts to when she starts to spiral, she starts to push him away, and he makes it all about his own insecurities kind of come to the fore there. And then it, once he's made aware of what Grace is trying to deal with and trying to navigate, then he has to try and navigate his response to it too. And I think that it was important that he wasn't just kind of understanding and empathetic the entire way through the film. I don't think that would have been a particularly interesting sort of story to tell as far as Seamus is concerned. He has to get there too. But then I think, you mentioned about the sort of shame that people that suffer from anxiety and things like OCD can feel, and I hope that hopefully Seamus sort of facilitates this to some degree in the film, that not only by sort of showing it and removing some of the stigma and breaking some of the taboo, it's also not a film about curing it or conquering it. It's a film about making peace with it and not being ashamed of it. And when people around you, and sometimes you need the people around you to give you permission to not be ashamed of it and to tell you shouldn't be ashamed of it. I think that's what Seamus sort of does for.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, it's really, we were very cognizant of that. We wanted to really show the acceptance and tolerance is necessary, and that we all need to be respectful of that, and that it's, we are all deeply flawed, and to accept each other for who we are, which is important above all, and quite apart from a mental health story, the acceptance and tolerance is, I guess, for me too, something that sort of is starting to be lost. The world gets more and more divisive with social media, and then particularly at the moment, and so it was, and coming out of COVID, I was really wanted to create a film that had a sense of hope to it, and a sense of joy, to rise above that stuff, that you can have those very painful moments in your life, and it can be very difficult, but it's also, if you have, love is not just, giving someone a hug, it's being there in their difficult moments, just sticking by someone. So that was an important thing to show.
100%. It was all so beautifully said, and I could feel all of that, and it's so true. I mean, it's a lot about when you're in a partnership, whatever the circumstance may be, when to sort of give space and give grace, and when to kind of kick someone in the ass a little bit. And that's what these two characters kind of do. It's this beautiful dance. But I think at the heart of it, when Grace finally does do such a brave thing of like telling him what's going on in her mind. Because I remember when I told my husband for the first time what was going on in my mind, it was one of the most terrifying days because you're so afraid of being judged. And when you're just met with that, I mean, you guys would know the line better than me, but like his response is just to like, how does it feel? Or like, tell me what it is like.
Yeah.
I keep
And
thinking
I
about
just like, I have chills thinking of it. Like that's why I think this film will be such a beautiful blueprint, I think, for those suffering from anxieties or OCD or, intrusive thoughts, or partners who, because it's so like, I'm so excited for my husband and all these people to watch this film to kind of, to see that. And it was really beautiful and it was very humanizing.
So interesting you say that, because one of our assistant editors on the film actually has OCD, and he does things in threes rather than tens, but he was really inspired by the film in the same way, and they were having a thing in their relationship. Now he was talking to his partner about it and brought him in the early days, brought his partner in to watch the film, and they had a big discussion around it all, sort of from that. So, I mean, it's really interesting, even like in the making of the film, it's provided this platform for conversation,
Yeah.
and that's going to be a good thing, I think.
I
100%.
also always say that is like the truest form of intimacy.
Mhm.
Is when, like, into me you see like intimacy when you crack open and you share the most vulnerable parts of yourself.
Yep.
I know, like, whenever my husband and I talk about this stuff, he deals with anxiety and oftentimes depression too. We just up level. It's like we'll have the conversation and we up level to a new understanding of each other, and we always say that's true intimacy, which is really beautiful.
Exactly. And I think, and that's exactly what great stories and art does, right? It cracks open, to be able to have these conversations with each other. It educates, creates empathy. And to me, that's the best. That's the magic.
Yeah, isn't just like, it's that Grace, obviously this is again, it's a story about Grace, but that it isn't, those conversations don't always have to go, yes, you should be thoughtful about how you approach them if you are the partner of someone who opens up to you in this way, but you're not always going to get it right. Like Seamus kind of fucks it up like a few, more than once. And I
Right.
had an interesting conversation with Deanne actually at
did
the
you?
meal, where, because when Grace sort of reveals that sort of central trauma of the
Mhm.
film, what happened to her brother, and during that conversation, Seamus says, you didn't think I had the right to know, something like that.
Right.
And
Tricky.
I think understandably,
Triggered by that.
yeah, and because and I'm like,
Doesn't deal with it very well.
I sort of wanted that to be like a potentially dickish thing for Seamus to have said in that moment, but
Right.
then Deanne was like, no, I thought like he should have had the right to know something like that.
I like
trying
that.
to go through this together, and I think
Yeah.
that's
I still don't know how I feel. Like, to your point, I'm like, I see it both ways.
you got to see things that there are. There's one person who, in that moment is more in need than the other, but they both need from each other. It's not a one-way street, and that's what
Right.
Seamus is fighting for during the film. It still can't all be about you as well.
No,
It's
that's right.
it's
But
all of
it's not
that
black and white,
knockiness.
And I
No.
think, again, we sought in the film to deal with the layers of grey. Things are not always, one way or the other, are they? So,
That's
I
right.
mean, I
That's
think
sort of the theme here. That's sort of the theme in terms of exploring the joys, the pains, all of it, that it all kind of coexists, and the journey never ends. Like, you never hit peak perfect couple in any scenario. And that, it's really, good to see these kind of conversations play out where you are left as the audience being like, well, and kind of mull it over and to see these, like I said, it's humanizing. And that's so important. And I'm sure also as actors, like that's what you want to play. Those are the scripts you want to get where it's complex and it's not one-sided. And
100%. Yeah.
We always say to our kids as well, which I think is just reminds me of this in some ways, is do you want advice or do you want to just listen? Because it's such a tendency when you love someone and they tell you something that you're like, I'm going to help you fix this. I'm going to bring you answers. And that's what I thought was so beautiful about that line. I always come back to that line where he wants to know, he wants to just talk about it. And he gives us space for Grace to feel like she can talk about it. And I was really surprised that she took the little olive branch and she was like, all right, I'm going to tell you what it feels like inside of my mind. And but yeah, when we're watching it, it just reminded me of what I say to my kids all the time. Sometimes they don't want answers. Sometimes they just want you to sit there and listen. And Grace is
even in that moment, I think even in that conversation, there are questions that Seamus is asking, probably with the notion of like, okay, if I can understand this better, then maybe I can fix it. When he goes,
that would be the next thing.
what does it? There's a line where he says, "What does it do for you?" He's trying to understand like the logic of there is none.
Yeah.
Really. Well, there is an emotional sort of logic.
Yeah.
I
it's
still
so
think
true. I mean, Teresa, that's such a beautiful and profound lesson to kind of pass along to your children, because I think like that's something like I work on today. Like, what I mean? Because that can be applied to so many situations where sometimes we don't really know what we need until we are faced with that, of being able to kind of either we need to express ourselves and explain, or we need to just have space or just to be heard.
I have some friends with therapists, and they often say that actually most of it is about someone just being like, blah, and like giving all of these things that they're going through without the need to have a therapist be like, these are the steps you need to take, A, B, C, D. And it's, I think you can apply that to every relationship in your life. And it's hard for me because my tendency is to like come up with answers and solutions. That's very my personality. So I appreciated the space that Seamus gave her. And of course, I understand why he wants to know more and be let in.
Understanding the intention.
Yeah.
Hey, no, it's beautiful. I mean, I could honestly talk about this movie for hours, as you can tell. We could get into every scene and we could just, have so much fun with it, but I don't want to keep y'all for too long. I know you have a Q&A and, fun and exciting things to come, but I just want to ask, since we are at TIFF, a beautiful film festival, and we're kind of honoring independent film, what does sort of that community, the festival community, the independent film community, continue to mean to all of you as creatives, and why do you continue to return to it and support it, and just tell me a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Well, I've got to say, for one, this is like a dream come true. I mean, this is my debut feature film. I've done as fiction, I've done documentary and animation, all kinds of stuff before, but this is my first dramatic feature film, and to have it at TIFF is just beyond. I mean, when I found out that I was going to be in TIFF, I was jumping. And I've never, been here before, but it's just such a fantastic, festive, amazing festival. I mean, it's very inclusive and warm. The audiences are amazing. On our premiere, like literally the whole audience stayed for the Q&A. People came up to us afterwards and hugged us and talked to us endlessly about it. All kinds of people, from like a group of gorgeous 18-year-old film school students to, and older woman who was struggling with anxiety. We had a mathematician in the audience who was
In tears.
who was
She's
in tears because she
yeah.
was a mathematician that had anxiety, and she really related to it.
Yeah.
And people were really open to talk about it, to, you know, and I guess the film, in a way, you know, it's not structured like a standard rom-com. I call it a psychological romantic dramedy. You know, it's kind of got that aspect to it. And, you know, they were really willing and open with it, which I thought was amazing. So just the general feeling of TIFF is quite extraordinary. The volunteers are all amazing and very helpful. And the selection of films is, you know, it's really broad.
Yeah.
The sorts of styles of film and filmmaking. And I'm a total cineast. I love films. So for me, it certainly is a lifetime moment to be here at TIFF. You know, I mean, I just can't tell you. It's an out of body experience. I mean, I can't tell you, when we went to lunch today at this Thai restaurant, I get out of the Thai restaurant, I nearly bump into someone, I turn around. Who do you think it is? It's Francis Ford Coppola.
Oh my God.
You just go, what planet am I on? It's extraordinary. And to be able to meet other people and have discussions and, you know, have a list, you know, an open forum on art and artists and, you know, storytelling and all of its different guises. Like, you know, it's pretty amazing. It's amazing, actually. That's my take on it. You can go now.
Yeah. Thanks. Well, I'm married to my husband, Mark Webber, is an independent filmmaker. We've raised, you know, budgets ourselves. We've written the scripts ourselves. You know, I produce these small little independent films, and we've been to so many different film festivals. And he's always said Toronto has been his favorite one to be at. And I think there's like a real vibrancy here. And we were walking around and there's such a buzz and you can just feel the love for cinema. And like Marcelle said, any film can fit in here. It doesn't matter how small you are or if you have mega movie stars in your movie. It just is so inclusive and it's deeply meaningful. It just felt so alive, you know, like electric. We were going from room to room like 2 days ago, talking to people about the movie and having our photograph taken, and we're bumping into all these huge, amazing movie stars that I've grown up like watching on the screen. And I'm like, we are included. Our small Australian film is included in this, and it just felt great. And you know, it's a beautiful festival and we're so grateful to be here.
We're very, very thankful. And like you were saying, how this film made you feel seen, this festival's made us feel seen.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
Well, Joe.
Sort of more further to what, kind of expanding on what Teresa said, you know, I think that independent film is sort of where like creativity, real innovation and creativity is sort of is born in our industry, and the film festival circuit is now sort of the main outlet for productions like that to be seen, be bought, and then be seen by even more people. So just as a function, the film festival circuit is so important because it allows films and filmmakers that platform coming here. This is the first film festival I've ever been to, and so
Really?
Teresa that spoke about, I think, is also like just a really vital part of it, because the atmosphere that this festival creates in this city, and therefore in the screenings as well, it's not just about it being independent, it's about cinema. You know, cinema itself is something that is, you know, you could consider it is in a bit of peril right now, and to kind of come to Toronto and to experience these films communally, I think that's really important, that it allows a space for people to come together and experience art, you know, in a room, go away, talk about it, you know, dissect it, analyze it. I think that it's becoming increasingly important to have things like this, and it's been, yeah, a real sort of bucket list experience to be here.
Yeah, it's absolutely bucket list. And to Joe's point, you know, I mean, it's incredibly important for our film. And you know, we're very small indie film, as he says, you know, from Australia, and something like TIFF gives us an opportunity to get it to a much broader audience. You know, people will stand up and listen to us, or will give our film a chance, or will look at it because we have a tick of approval from TIFF, you know, and it means an enormous amount. I mean, it's not just to be surrounded in this nurturing, fantastic, inspiring, and you know, great conversation about cinema. It's also that, you know, it allows us to step into the world, you know, our film to go out there, which is amazing. So we're very grateful.
Well, that's so lovely. That was so wonderful. And I'm like, I wish I was there. There's nothing better. And to be able to share and be part of the community. And well, you've inspired me very much today. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you.
So
Thank you
wonderful.
for being so
Yeah,
generous.
yeah, absolutely. And thank you. We felt your enthusiasm and support. So thank
Yeah,
you
it means
so
a lot.
much.